Hi, Steve Albrecht from the Safe Library and Library20.com with Layla the Wonder Beagle. One of the things I've been considering in my HR work has a little bit of a security feel to it as well, is bringing in volunteers into your library. So they may run Friends of the Library bookstore, they may take a shift as a page, they may do some sort of community work for you. Maybe they teach a class or something at the library. The more complicated answer about bringing in those kinds of folks is they have to be vetted just like an employee. So there's a background check, there's an interview process. They may have big hearts and questionable pasts. They may have um, um, a long standing in the community, everybody knows them, but they still need a background check. They still need an interview process. So we don't just bring folks into our library, especially in contact with seniors, a concern for senior abuse, elder abuse, financial or physical. We don't bring just anybody into the library to be around kids. We have a real concern for who represents our library, whether it's a full-time employee, part-time employee, volunteer. So think about your processes for how we vet, interview, screen, discuss volunteers coming into the library. So nobody gets a free pass in terms of the process. Everybody goes through it. And make sure your questions are legal. You can't say, have you ever been arrested before? That's illegal. You can't ask people about their age, things like that. HR professionals in the library world know all this, and I've written about it in my new book coming up next spring. But when you think about the vetting process, you can say, are you being investigated by the police for crimes against children? Can you say, have you ever been investigated for physical abuse or elder abuse of the elderly? Are you currently being investigated for any violence crimes? And again, we can't run people in civil indexes for criminal arrests, but we can certainly do a background check, which includes convictions. And how that works is they are screened in every county that they have ever lived in. So that's why the background check is important, that we get all the information on our applications like we would for a full-time or a part-time employee, and we do the same screening process. We have a duty of care for our library, duty of care for our facilities, our collections, our colleagues, coworkers, most importantly, the other patients that these volunteers may serve. They may be good-hearted folks, absolutely, and they oftentimes do great things on behalf of the library, but we want to make sure that we are going through the same vetting, screening process for them, even though they're not being hired as an employee, but we're bringing them on with full levels of responsibility. Maybe we give them keys and access to cash in the Friends of the Library bookstore, things like that. We want to make sure we have the right folks in place. So think about your process for how we screen in volunteers and also screen out volunteers as not being appropriate based on their background or their convictions or anything like that. We would not want them in the facility. Everybody deserves a second chance. Certainly true, but for that job where we have access to kids, where we have access to seniors, we have access to financial instruments, proprietary data, things like that. We want to make sure we use the same screening processes for our volunteers as our employees. So for Layla, the best Beagle ever, library20.com and thesafelibrary.com. Steve Albrecht. See you later.